Hello, welcome to these additional 10 classes on portrait mastery. In the previous videos I've spent a lot of time talking about technique of actually building a portrait, and we're going to go over that a little bit more in these classes as well, but I want to change focus to some of the subtleties of portrait mastery. So what we're going to be talking about in these classes is how to create mood. Some of the most important elements in creating a strong mood in your portraits is framing, how you emphasize the features by pulling in on a face and just drawing certain characteristics, or pulling out and drawing the entire head, pulling out more and drawing part of the body, and so on. The lighting and the pose and or expression of the face. A lot can be communicated simply by where you have the eyes looking, either downcast, straight out at the viewer, focusing on something within the picture frame that you can see and kind of share in that experience with the person in the painting, or eyes focused on something that you can't see. Every facial expression is going to invoke a different mood. But what you need to remember is that the power behind portraits is the fact that they emphasize the thoughts and feelings of a fellow human being. Let's first explore a portrait with downcast eyes that uses an unusual framing. So we're not going to draw a complete face. I'm going to fill the paper and draw just a partial face, emphasizing the eyes, the downcast eyes. So here I'm going to start a sketch. Always start with your largest shapes, remember. And consider how the face is going to fill the paper. So I have here the large outward shape of the face and beard. In the center of the head is the eye. The nostril lines up with the inner corner of the eye. So it should be about right here. So now I'm just adding some scribbly lines to stand for hair, and I'll use a graphite stick. Since a graphite stick doesn't have a definite point, it just has edges, it really forces a looser approach. And for a beginning sketch, that's what I want. This tonal study will help not only familiarize yourself with the shapes of the shadows and the curvature of the particular portrait and the feature placement and all of the technical aspects that way, it will also help you to judge how best to frame the picture and where you want to place the emphasis. See how I fluctuate between adding the lines and adding the shadow shapes. In this sketchy phase, the whole process develops together. When I want to emphasize a line, I press down harder, but I'm not bothering to erase the sketchy lines that aren't necessary. I'm just working the whole piece up together and trying to get a sense of how I want it to flow. Also, remember how important lighting is. I'm going to put the shape of the shadow in on the nose. I'm doing it in a scribbly fashion. And yet, even just this much will start to emphasize the definite mood of this portrait. Some scribbly lines here to show where I want the shadow of the cheek to fall. I'll also add some emphasis in the eyebrows. and in the darkest place of the face, like the nostril and the eye. And also, while I'm doing my tonal study, I'm thinking about how best to approach the finished piece. That shadow shape, I'm going to emphasize it. Then there's a little space for a highlight on the cheek. And that shadow goes all the way up the forehead. Most of this is hair from the beard. And the hair has a shadow too. I'm going to make that a different texture by using the charcoal on the side, and that way my tonal study will be more meaningful to me when I'm working on the final picture, because the hair shadow will be distinct from the face shadow. Then in the background here, well, I've got just an indication of the lower lip. All of this shadow will be blended more smoothly. Here and there I'll emphasize some darks even farther, just pressing down harder with my graphite stick. These lines in the forehead are really important to emphasize what he's feeling. This is a picture of this man caught late in his life, worrying about something that is inaccessible to the viewer. We're never going to know what's on his mind. The important point in drawing this portrait is going to be, what does it put on your mind? Notice importantly though that his face is not blank. There's something complicated below the surface, and that complication is what draws the viewer in. I feel as though I am well acquainted enough with the drawing that I can confidently go on to a finished piece. This sketching time has given me a much better understanding of how the face fits together, how I want to emphasize the eye especially, how I want to situate the face on the piece of paper. So now let's move on to a finished piece.